Hi, and welcome to Cooking with Kids. I'm Sarah, the Children Youth Services Librarian here at the Spruce Grove Public Library. In this program, you're going to meet my family, my husband Dave, and my kids, Sutherland, Montgomery, Oswald, and Theodora. Cooking with kids can sometimes be a crazy experience, but the memories they make and the hands-on learning that they take away from being involved in food prep and build a foundation for healthy eating habits. So more tips and suggestions for this can be found at Canada's Food Guide online. So enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, today with Cooking with Kids, this is my helper Theo. Say hi. And we're going to be making a seafood kimchi soup. It's a Korean dish, and yeah, nothing too crazy, but a couple of our ingredients. Some green onions, a bit of kimchi. If you're not familiar with kimchi, it's kind of weird, I guess. Pickled cabbage and a little bit spicy. So we put a little bit of that in the soup for some flavor. You can use seafood broth or chicken broth. One of the ingredients in a lot of Asian dishes tends to be sesame oil. If you don't have that, use canola oil. Doesn't matter that much, but adds to a little bit more of the authenticity of the flavors, I guess. Use a little bit of garlic, a little bit of soy sauce, some baby bok choy, and we're going to be putting some noodles in it today. Kind of little fat ones. They are what's called Udon Noodles. You can get them at most of your regular grocery stores. Thanks, Theo. And yes, don't forget the eggs. Yeah, and it's something you do at the very end of the dish, and it completely changes the taste. You're going to do the eggs too? Because this is a seafood one, we're going to add some seafood. I got a mixed blend here of squid and mussels and that sort of thing. But yeah, you can add whatever you want for that seafood taste. If you don't want to do a seafood one, you could add a little bit of beef or a little bit of pork. So, alright, so first thing we're going to do is put a little bit of sesame oil in the pot, and we're going to fry, just wait. And then we're going to fry a little bit of the garlic and the kimchi in there, just briefly, and the seafood, and then we'll add the broth to it and let it start cooking. The whole process will take maybe 20 minutes. So here we are. We're warming up the pot. I'm going to add a little bit of the sesame oil into it. Like I said, olive oil, canola oil, use what you want, but this tends to be the one that gets used in most Oriental and or Asian style cooking. So we'll put in a couple of tablespoons. And wait for it to warm up just a little bit. And you can use fresh garlic. I tend to keep a lot of dried garlic around. So we'll put a little bit of garlic in. And we'll add a little bit of the seafood medley. Like with most soups, it's up to you how much broth and that type of stuff you want. If you want it a little more liquidy. If you want it kind of thicker with stuff, then add more of the stuff. The vegetables, the meats, whatever. So I tend to go a little heavier on it. So we'll just start by frying up some of this. Like I said, there's squid, shrimp, mussels in this one, but you can just use whatever. So I got about 2.5 cups worth of stuff in there. And we're not really trying to cook it all the way because it'll do that a bit in the broth as it boils. Let's start getting the flavors kind of mixing and melting together. And we'll add a little bit of the kimchi. Yeah, it's just kind of a flavor thing. So I tend to put some in. Like I said, it's kind of in the same way like sauerkraut or pickled cabbage gets used sometimes in things like cabbage rolls. It's the same idea, except for this one has a little bit of chili kind of spice and pepper in it, so it's has a little bit of a spice to it. But yeah, and we'll just let that kind of fry together here for a little bit, for a couple minutes, and then we'll add our broth. So we're now at the point where we can add our chicken broth or seafood broth, whatever you want to put in. Again, if you're one of those people that's on top of things and pre-makes it, then have at her. I'm not that advance, not on a weekly basis anyways. So I'm actually going to put a couple of liters in, just making kind of a bigger pot here. But you can scale this down for sure if you're just making a meal for 2 or 3 type thing. So we're going to let that warm up and kind of, once again, get those flavors melting together. Just want to make a quick note. The product I'm talking about is kimchi. K-I-M-C-H-I. Being that spicy pickled cabbage. Yeah. Not used in lots of Oriental cooking or dishes, but it's kind of a Korean specific thing. And yeah, kind of the flavor we're going with today. So next thing we need to do is chop up our veggies here a little bit. We're not putting too much in. Some spring onion, the baby bok choy, and things like the noodles, the baby bok choy, and the egg, they go in right at the very end. You essentially aren't even cooking them. They're just kind of warming up. So the biggest thing is what's on the stove right now just simmers away and gets the flavors going. We'll add a little soy sauce in a little bit. So you can do them however. Some people like to chop them in bigger chunks. Again, it kind of depends on your own preference. That being said, once again, a lot of what we're doing here is kind of with kids, and if they're picky, the smaller they are, the less noticeable they are. So. Okay, can you put those on the plate? Thank you. And our other veggie that we use is bok choy. I like the baby ones. I think they're cute and look nice. You don't really have to chop them up. Just separate them from the stalk here. So all we have to do with those is trim the last little bit off, and then they just kind of fall apart into the leaves. So I tend to leave these whole. You don't have to really cook them at all. They're kind of like spinach. It may look like you're putting a lot in, but after about a minute or 2 of them just sitting there, they shrink up quite a bit. And yeah, and you don't want to boil them really long time so they get squishy. You want them to still have kind of a nice crisp to them. So any other ones here? That's good enough. We'll start with that and see where we get to. See if we want to add a little bit more. Okay. Thank you. Make sure you get to the bottom. Okay. Make sure nothing sticks on the bottom. Okay. I'll hold the bottom. Hot. Yeah. Don't go stick your hand over it. All right. So the pot's been simmering here for about 8-10 minutes. Get that seafood flavor kind of mixing in with the broth. We're going to add a couple of things now. We're going to add our udon noodles. You can use whatever noodles you want. You can use ramen, you could use whatever, just pay attention to the cook instructions. These ones require about 3 minutes to be cooked, and so it really doesn't take too much. We'll put a couple tablespoons of soy sauce in. Adds a little bit of saltiness to it. You going to stir it for me? Alright. Okay, you stir it. And we're going to plop these noodles in. Because of how much we're doing here, I'll put 2 little packs in. Okay, just let them sit for a minute and then they'll start to separate, okay? So once we're about 1.5 minutes into the cook time on that, we're going to add the bok choy and the green onion. And yeah, that's about it. And then the very final stage is once you've turned it off and completely done, then we'll throw the eggs in at the very end. But it definitely adds a major flavor difference to the soup. So it's been a couple minutes now and our noodles are breaking apart. So there we go. It's time now to add the bok choy. Like I said, they look huge, but they shrink down rather quickly. Yeah, throw those in. And then we'll put the spring onion in as well. Yeah, get it off there. And then we stir it in. We're pushing it down so that it can heat up. And that'll take about 1 minute or so. So we have a few things going on here. Some of the more clear looking stuff, that is the kimchi that we put in early on. We have our bok choy here, the bigger pieces, our udon noodles. And we got things like little pieces of shrimp, squid, and mussels. Like I said, you could use fish with this, you could use, not make it seafood, whatever, if that's not your thing. If you'd rather do beef or pork, little pieces, by all means. It's all done cooking. What we're going to do now is remove it off heat. Forgot to mention too, if you're a vegetarian type person and you don't want to use seafood or beef and stuff or any other meats, you could use tofu. It's a very common additive, whether meat's in it or not. So we're going to actually take this off the heat now. Wash your hands. And then we're going to actually put a couple eggs in here. You don't get too quick on the stirring or else it falls to little bits and pieces. You just let it sit. And depending on how much egg you like in there, you put 2, 3. So now that the egg is in, I'm just going to break the yolk. And you just kind of slowly stir it in. And it'll cook. Like I said, if you go and stir it a bunch, it turns really stringy and just goes everywhere. Instead of kind of getting little clumps of egg in. And you know what? We only live once, so I think I'm going to put a third egg. So. Just slowly put that in. So you let it sit for maybe a minute, and then you can stir it up and serve it. So now, as you can see, after a minute or two of sitting, you can start seeing all the little white bits and stuff in the soup here, and it kind of changes the color of the soup now that that egg has cooked. So now we're ready to pull some out and plate it. Yeah, these are extremely long udon noodles. There. Yeah. Alright, get a little bit of bok choy in the bowl. Some other seafood. A few pieces of kimchi. And some egg. You have it. You can serve it with some biscuits or bread, like we tend to with almost everything. Yeah. Kimchi seafood soup. Recipe kind of courtesy of my ex-girlfriend in grade 10. I went to school with lots of Oriental kids, so got to learn all sorts of bit of different foods and different cooking. So, but yeah, there you have it.
Thank you for watching Cooking with Kids, brought to you by the Spruce Grove Public Library. We hope that you enjoyed this recipe and are inspired to try it yourself at home. To celebrate this new virtual program, we will be hosting a Kids Kitchen Challenge. We're asking the young chefs of Spruce Grove to send us a photo of them preparing a family favorite recipe or any recipe of your choice. All participants will be entered into the grand prize draw. More details can be found on our library website at sgpl.ca/programs/kitchen-challenge. New videos will drop here on Facebook every 2 weeks throughout the fall, so join us again soon for more tasty makes. Stay safe and have fun in the kitchen.